Welcome everybody today. I want to welcome you to today's meeting. Go ahead and call it to order. Our first item is the minutes of the September 2023 meeting. See if anybody had time to review them, if you have any changes.
I don't have any notes regarding follow-up notes.
Everything looks fine.
Motion to approve?
Okay, I'll second.
Roll call, Bradley?
Yes.
Angie?
Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
Dustin?
Yes.
All in favor, none opposed?
Our second item here, probably our biggest item of the day, is going to be the review for the consideration of the approval of the 2023 Public Transit Safety Plan.
I'll be happy to give an overview of that. So, this, Public Transit Agency Safety Plan, PTASP, for one of, FTA's acronyms. We have a lot in transit that we follow. This is a, safety plan that was really modeled kind of after the aviation industry that the, Federal Transit Administration adopted, and, back as part of the FAST Act legislation, and, implemented this to all transit agencies, particularly of, any size that has, equipment to ensure and enhance safety. It's a performance-based approach to safety management systems, so you'll hear that word SMS quite a bit, or that phrase. As you go through this, you'll recognize it in this plan quite a bit, and there's just been a lot of talk about safety management systems, SMS, and the whole premise of it is they're trying to change it from, a degree of safety, such as safety as a checklist, so to speak, to more of a culture of safety. You have to kind of dig through the plan to see really what it is they're talking about. But the plan itself, like I said, it started with the FAST Act legislation, and it's been, received changes as part of the bipartisan infrastructure law, the new BIL. So all of those changes have been incorporated into this plan. Kind of give you an idea of the changes that we made. You can kind of look at these tabs here and see, these are the areas that we've made the changes to. So it's a working plan, it's a working document. It's not something that just sits on the shelf. And I think Nancy mentioned before the meeting, we've had a number of different safety meetings from safety committees to kind of ensure that we're addressing the elements of the plan. So this plan, as thick as it is, it really incorporates two parts. One is the plan itself, which is the policy and commitment. And the second part of it is the implementation plan that we actually asked the board to approve as part of the revision and implementation plan in 2022. And with that, really when you think of the implementation plan, a big part of it was an assessment that we downloaded from the website, FTA website, actually quite some time ago, and it was like a questionnaire, and you read through here, there's just a ton of questions that really just helps you determine whether or not you're structured properly for the environment that you serve. And so there are questions in here that do not relate to our agency or entity or the services that we provide. We don't provide rail service, and so there might be questions in there relating to rail or different things. And some of them are, these are for all systems. We're obviously not as large as Dallas, or we're not as large as even Rock Region Transit, and maybe we're not unionized. So these are, you'll see a variety of different questions in here that may or may not pertain to our agency. But it is a good checklist to look at and see, are we doing all that we could be doing? Do we have the appropriate procedures in place? Have we thought of all the things that might impact or affect, public transportation? Come on in. All that being said, it's really a good plan, and again, what their focus is that we now incorporate risk management into the safety plan process. So, to do this, what we've done is we've incorporated a risk register in with our, what we call our operational data sheets, our daily sheet that we organize, and we say this driver drives this bus, and, you know, these buses are in operation, these buses are your backup fleet, you know. The risk register might include some hazards that we've identified, or some potential hazards, you know. Might be a forecast of weather, extreme weather this week, you know. Bring your safety cleats if it's an ice storm, you know, just things that we can think of to help us prepare for the risk and try to mitigate those risks as best we can. And so we've included that, and we felt like this year we made some changes and incorporated as part of that ODS sheet, because we wanted to make sure that we had some documentation for every day that we're in operation. And it may be the same information throughout the course of the week, but at least there's some eyes on it. It's available to the drivers, it's available to the dispatchers, and the operations team. And so that becomes our risk register that we have for our program. And then, there's, if you look at page 53, you may not have these, because it was quite extensive, and we sent it to you electronically so that we didn't, you know, tear down several trees trying to print this off, but, anyways, but if you look through the plan, page 53, kind of speaks of our implementation plan, which kind of outlines our initial task that we set out, and said, these are the initial things that we're gonna do as part of the plan. And that included some policy commitments, some certifications and credentialing, and a compilation of our investigative procedures and reports, and actually a culture survey that we provided to all the employees and asked them, hey, what is your perception of safety? And naturally, we can get those back. Anybody that might be upset with anything is gonna, you know, it's gonna show in that report. But I think for the most part, most everybody was, you know, looked at that for what it was, and was, you need a chair. Looked at that for what it was, and participated in it fairly. So we have that information to kind of look and see, do we need to make adjustments here or there? And there's a copy of the actual report that we shared with the staff in the back here, the culture survey. So you can look at that if you'd like to. That's the blank one, so you can see how that works. And then we had some annual tasks that we said we were gonna do every year, you know, and that's gonna be a review of this plan. We're gonna sit down and kind of summarize what our accidents and incidents were. We're gonna apply them to some organizational processes, and we're gonna see, you know, were there other elements that impacted any of these incidents or accidents? So if you look at, if you were to look at page 80 in this plan, it has a page in here that talks about organizational processes. And I found this to be one of the most intriguing pages of the entire plan, and it really explains the plan well, because it looks something like this. But you know, you put in here what the condition was, and it asks for workplace conditions. So once you list out, you know, relative to this accident or incident, were there any workplace conditions that might have influenced this accident? Were there any active failures, you know, things like maintenance personnel, training staff, management, that have an immediate impact on the health and trigger factors, you know, where there are things in place that, either could have influenced it or could have prevented it. So that it makes you think about those types of things. And what defenses did you have in place? You know, were there, some policies in place, maybe a fitness for duty, policy, which is what we have. We have a fitness for duty practice that, we ask the dispatchers, we actually have the drivers come up to the dispatch office to receive their paperwork. And that's so that the dispatcher can have eyes on the driver, hey, you look like you're not feeling well today. I don't think you need to be, providing transportation. Let's get you replaced
So
today.
that's every day.
Yes.
Every
And
day.
so, that's one of our defenses that we might have. So we can incorporate that and say, before our defense is working well. But, so when you think about the plan, those are some of the things that we do. And another thing, if you look at the very next page, it's got this graph, which I really think is well said. This guy was really smart, but, he talks about practical drift. And practical drift occurs, practical drift occurs when, we have a policy in place and we say, we know it didn't happen that way because we have a policy in place, So practical drift is the difference between what you think is going on and what is actually going on. So there are two different, you may have this scale of what you think is going on, but what's actually going on is quite a bit different. And so, it's important to know the differences between the two and where you have some reality based into your safety plan.
Is that relative to, like, how long the policy has been in effect and therefore is not really being enacted with a fresh, new?
Absolutely,
Is that
absolutely. And I commonly refer to those as the 2-week policies, We had an incident, so we, made a policy adjustment, and in a couple of weeks, kind of got forgotten about. I still remember that policy being in place, but it kind of just got forgotten about, So, are there steps that we need to take to put that in writing? Maybe make that a little more obvious, or maybe we need to bring that up in a meeting, and provide some recurrency training on that. So those are some things that we need to do to counter practical drift. Another important part of this is what they call the employee safety reporting procedures. And that was one of the first things that they wanted to put in this program. In the aviation industry, I know this because I'm a flight instructor, we were talking about that, but they had this, what they call NTSB 830 program, and it was a self-reporting program, so a waiver program, that, if you feel like you might have done something wrong, you actually, you can self-report it to the NTSB, and it might prevent you from getting from getting some sort of a punitive damage or something on your license. If you took the time to share about it before you were actually accused or caught or accused of it. So the idea is that it is out there to note, instances of safety, that, you might have caused that, or you might have seen, or how it could have been handled differently, that someone could learn from, gain information from, prevent an accident from. That's part of the self-reporting program. And it's also, is there a safety issue that we have going on out there that, nobody is willing to report it, and so this gives a actual, phone number to call, and I worked this out with the internal auditor. It's actually in here, and we actually post that number. There's a bulletin in here, I think it's on page 89. Pull that up here and show it to you. But yeah, here it is, it's the hotline to it, but this is the employee self-reporting hotline. And, it's anonymous, so they can go on there and
Do we have that posted somewhere where the
yes,
employees see
this
it, like
is
in their
the
break room or
driver's And this is made available to all the drivers. At one time, we did flash drives, handed to everyone, and the problem with that is when we would wanna renew it, we'd call for the flash drives, nobody would have them. So we're kinda doing it by request now. We're making it available, we'll have a copy in the driver's room. Obviously, it's a working document, so we're modifying it all the time, but, at any time, it's certainly available for employees to look at. And this number is posted, so, if they feel like it's necessary that they put something out about safety, it's heard. And it comes back to me ultimately as hey, wanna make sure this is capturing your attention. We need to address this, or you need to at least be aware of it, that kind of thing. And so, that's what that's about. I think as far as, I've tried to give a pretty good overview of the plan. Like I said, it's a working plan. One of the things I wanted to mention is, we're asking for your approval today, but before we take this to the board of directors, what we would like to do, is separate the implementation plan from the actual safety plan. And, keep the two on file always together. But, what I think is necessary for the employees and to maintain as part of a safety plan is probably all the, the answers to all the questions. We incorporate those in here, so it's a much more reader-friendly view. I mean, you don't really need the questions in there if you're trying to read the policy. You wanna know what it is we're doing and how we're doing it. You don't need all the questions in there. It makes it kind of confusing. So we'll keep that, maintain it as a separate file, have it available, in the binder with it, but the actual policy itself, we're hoping to take that to the board in its readable form. We'll also probably provide, likely will provide the separate implementation plan, so that you can see that both of them are connected, but, the plan itself is more readable. And it's gonna take a little bit of time to do that, so, we're planning to take this to the board probably at the second meeting in January. I think that meets, well within the schedule that was provided in the plan. It really shows September is when you start that process. It doesn't, it's not a full year schedule in here, but I think in January is a good time for that process to be completed. So, especially with all the work that we're doing to, as you can see, we've made a lot of changes, so, a lot of updates. But, with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
I noticed the demand response mechanical failure target,
Right.
was, for this coming year, was dramatically higher than our performance for the prior year.
Right.
Like, almost 3 times as high.
Right.
Are we doing something that is gonna make it so that we're achieving this new goal that is set sky high?
Yeah.
Well, most of them were set, pretty
Yeah.
close to where we are,
And
room
good
for a little
catch. I had the
improvement.
same question, so we had to sit down and look at it again, but what it is you're taking the total miles for a 5-year period, because this is a 5-year plan. For the targets, it's the last 4 years, including the current year and a future look at the next year. But as far as the information, it's a 5-year look back. So it's taking 5 years worth of miles, and then you are, for like the major mechanical failures, you're taking the major mechanical failures that you had and dividing it by the total miles in a 5-year period. So if you look at that, it was something like 600.
It was,
And it
versus
seems like, well,
100
wait,
something though.
that's more miles than we travel in a year,
Yeah.
But what you're putting in your plan is a target that, you don't want really anything more than that if you could prevent it. You've done a fine job, you've had very few breakdowns that have affected the demand response system in the last 5 years. So in the next 5 years, you want even less if you And so what we did is we took the estimated, for our target setting, we took, the estimated 2023, which is not included in the look back, all right? But, I mean, we're almost done with 2023. So we incorporated that, we incorporated, what, the, 3 years prior to that, which would be a 4-year period, and the next year. And next year, we always put a 0. We anticipate there's not gonna be any. We don't wanna budget for some bad behavior. And likely it's gonna happen. It's just, it is what it is. And it's not always at the fault of us. This does not look at the agency, at fault, basically. This looks at what happened. So, if you look at the injuries, the number of injuries that have occurred, there were 4 in 2023, and those were, related to, where we got rear-ended, basically, and had injuries. And so they really were not at our fault, but FTA's not looking at fault, they're looking at injuries. So-
Things that happen.
Right, and so, I know that's confusing, it's confusing to me when we, especially in
Yeah,
Lori
the
and I-
target looks off there, it looks like we're shooting for the moon all of a sudden.
Lori, did I explain that?
Yes, yes, when we do the 5-year period, when we're estimating 2023, we're dropping off the oldest year. So the oldest year had some, and then we're estimating 0, so that brings the multiplier
That makes sense.
a lot higher.
'Cause
So it
looked
will
like it was a-
bleed over into the next year. We're estimating a year further that, some more miles having to go by before we have one.
Yeah. Cause most of the others, look closer,
I totally
Slight
understand. the
improvement,
question.
and there's
I
ours.
had the same question myself, even after I knew the answer. It
Still
was
like,
like, okay, I've gotta make
right?
sure. But when you look at our mileage,
Yeah.
so we actually took, we had all that broken down, it's not in the report, but we had all the mileage for each year, and we took the mileage and added it together for 5 years, and then, which was some number way beyond that, and then, or was that the total? I'm trying to remember, how many mechanical failures? I don't have that.
And with such a new fleet, we should have
Yeah.
some less mechanical failures.
Well, we actually have less mechanical failures in the demand response fleet than we do the fixed route fleet. And a lot of that is, the frequency of stops, it's great, is much greater in the fixed routes. You actually have, 3 times larger fixed route system, 2 to 3 times larger than your demand system any one day. So, there's just the opportunity for, failures is there, but yeah. So anyways, I do know the data is correct.
Okay.
I do know we've gone through it a number of times and verified that. I understand where it gets confusing.
Not like the-
I don't know that we had this, we had a consultant that prepared this for the state, and that's the manner which they prepared it in. And they did it, to FDA's preferences. I don't know that I would have done it that way had I
And as long
initially.
as you do it
Yeah.
consistently, it doesn't
Right.
matter, as long as you just do it the same way.
Right. Right, that's what we were looking at, is consistency. So we're carrying the, consultant's work that was, I think it was 2018 when this was first, put into play, and then, we're 2018 or 2019. And we've just been renewing it, and modifying it, revising it. So yeah, we're following the same course as the consultant. And the consultant did the same plan for everybody in the state of Arkansas. So you'll see the same kind of plan in, Little Rock, you'll see it in, Northwest Arkansas. It's a very similar plan, because all the agencies, had the same consultant that prepared the initial plan. But we felt it's important to make sure that we're, keeping it up to date, and that's what we're doing here today.
It looked good to me otherwise, I didn't know everything was in, it looked good.
Good question.
So we wanted a motion to approve.
That would be great.
I'll make a motion to approve revised 2023 Public Transit Agency Safety Plan.
I'll second it.
Roll call, Angie? Yes.
approval of the 2024 holiday and free ride day schedule. Looks like you got 8 free ride days plus the free rides for all veterans on Veterans Day.
Now, we had a healthy discussion among staff about this. We took a look at each holiday and the merits of it, when it is, and it's something we probably should have looked more closely at in prior years, because we noticed that we had full service on Veterans Day last year, and we were like, why did we do that? Well, we realized what happened in the prior year, the day that Veterans Day fell on. It didn't make sense to have it not have operations on a Monday, and so, which was the day that the city recognized the holiday. And so we carried that tradition forward, not looking specifically at this for the current year. So we've done that. We took a close look at each of these holidays, and we feel like with all these other holidays being limited service, the ones that we're not completely closed on, we felt like the Veterans Day should be limited service as well. And we felt like, now this is our ask to the commission. Would the commission be willing to make free rides for veterans on Veterans Day?
I think it's very cool. There may be room to clarify how we're gonna decide this. Are we just, we're gonna take your word for it, you
How
call
do
us
we
and say you
verify
need
it?
a ride, and you say you're a veteran, we're gonna believe you?
Veteran
Or
card.
are we gonna have some sort of
Veteran card.
standards?
I mean, they have
Yeah.
An ID,
Yes.
their military ID,
Oh,
they can
is
show
that
it like
what
one of
it
the
is?
pass, they can just show it when they get on the bus and just ride for free.
Okay, okay. We'll just
Currently,
make sure,
our
publicize
policy-
that they're gonna need to have that.
Will.
Yeah. Currently, our policy is veterans with a service-connected disability can ride free. This would be veterans, just any
Any
veterans, is the way this.
It's a photo ID.
Yes.
Driver's license has it on.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, sounds great.
And that would be up to the commission, but, we felt like that'd be appropriate to ask.
And I'm feeling kind of loose, that we, you know, we might ought to express to the drivers kind of loose enforcement of the policy too, that hey, if they say they're a veteran and they're expecting a free ride that day, you know, even if maybe,
They don't
you know,
have
maybe
to
the proof isn't handy, that it's one ride, let's let them go, you know, happy Veterans Day.
Do you need a motion for that, or?
I think so, yeah, I think we'd be good, because.
Yeah, I saw it, I checked
This
those,
is what
you know,
we-
I checked those.
This is
every
what
year.
we'll post for the following year. I think we did also include New Year's Day on here, just so that it can kind of help, for 2025, just so that it kind of can help, those being so close together. You know, we thought it might be best to incorporate that into the schedule, for viewing purposes.
Mhm. Okay, so I make a motion that, we extend, free rides for all veterans on Veterans Day.
I'll say that.
And would that include the adoption of the holiday free ride?
Yes, yes.
Put it all together.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Roll call Dustin,
Yes.
Angie,
Yes?
Melissa,
Yes.
Bradley,
Yes,
Joe,
Yes.
all in favor, none opposed.
All right, item 4 is other business, access road update and bus shelters.
All right, so we're making some progress on, the access road. Carl has met with, the official from the A&M Railroad, and they're willing to work with us on, a joint use agreement, a shared joint use agreement that will allow us to cross the railroad and do it in a safe manner. And now we started working on a document that kind of outlines the terms of what will happen when that transpires. So, and I've been in contact with, Harmon Properties, which is the ones that actually are providing the easement. They actually provide the easement to the A&M Railroad, so we've got an easement from them for a crossing. They're anxious about this project because they wanna do some drainage work and their drainage work is limited until our drainage work is done. And our drainage work is gonna be incorporated as part of this project with the access road. Because the drainage actually runs around underneath where the access road will be built, so, they're anxious to get that process done. But, since we've had the, more or less the talks with, A&M and, looking is this going forward, I visited with, Harmon Properties, they're anxious to get moving. I visited with, Tony White, who's on the other end, where we'll be coming out on the South 28th Street. He's anxious, and now he knows, what we're looking at, it's a private easement, not a public easement. And so, all of the pieces are starting to come together. We worked with the attorney, he's drafting up some information. Right now, we're working with the civil, or the design firm to finish up the construction plans, and so that we can provide them as part of the agreement with the A&M Railroad. So at this point, it's just a matter of things being done, and we'll take this back to the board, so we're, the agreement with A&M and stuff, so, just wanted to let you know that that's in progress, and, for something that we've kind of had struggles with for so long, that it's great to know that's back in the play, it's back.
Money
working.
comes out of the streets fund, the
So-
city streets?
So this will come from Federal Transit Administration.
Oh, good.
And this is gonna come from, every year we have, an appropriation and an allocation. And our allocation is, lately, it's been about, 2.4 million, I think is where we're at now, that we get. And our budget expense is not that much. Keeping in mind, that has to be matched or leveraged. So we use local funds to leverage that with. And so, every year that we don't spend all of our apportionment or allocation, then, those become kind of a setup and an amount of funds available. So we have this culmination of funds that we can apply to this project, and that's where that's coming from. And, so we're looking forward to that. I think that's gonna be great, great. It'll be a huge safety thing. I think if you've come through this area, particularly on a Thursday or Tuesday when they have a heavy, traffic day in there, it becomes very dicey trying to get through there. It's very scary. And so they're thinking the same thing. And, we're in the middle of their operations as well. So, it's a good thing. It's a win-win. The gate will be shut and locked with the exception of if there's a emergency at this gate, that they have to, close their gates, and we will have to put some manual gates in the event that they need to do work on the track. Then at that point, I've already worked with, Harmon Properties, then we will open this gate and use it as an alternative access. So, all pieces are in play now, and we're really, all parties are in play, we're excited about it, so, that's moving forward. As far as the, was there any questions about that? As far as the bus shelter update, I've asked David to come give us an overview of where we're at. David's been working on this to the point that I'll probably learn something from his report.
Well, in the last year, we've purchased or helped purchase some 10 shelters that we put in the downtown area as an art program, shelter art from area school children for art. We have 8 out of the 10 in. We got 1 to be moved and 1 more to be shelter art put in it. And then we just, in the yesterday and today, we put in 2 shelters, one at the VA clinic, which was very well, needed very much, and at Zero Street Walmart. And then we have another one at Walmart coming up on Kelly Highway, and then the neighborhood market out here on 71. So we have all those shelters for that in place. We just have to repair one, build another one, but it's rocking along pretty good right now, so.
Thank you, David. And the street department's, providing the pads, or we're paying for the concrete, but they're helping us with the pads and their sidewalk team, and, man, they've done an awesome job.
And I was gonna say also, we have 78 shelters.
78
Yeah,
in
in
the
the
shelters.
city, so.
And a number of them have bike racks on, so they're dual amenities, and, so program's working out really well, it's nice, and, I think well received by the community.
That one at the Zebra Street Walmart, I've had several people requesting before it was up, and, you know, with that new location, with that new stop, it really makes a difference happening
Right.
there,
Right.
that's an improvement.
Well, the,
And that brings about kind of another topic that I probably should share as far as, the changes that we've had to make within the Walmart parking lot and the Central Mall parking lot. And just to make, kind of clear the air on where this is coming from, Walmart has been very good to work with us. Right now, the problem we've had over at the Walmart, on Rogers was the area next to Walmart is not owned by Walmart, and they've asked us to vacate because of our heavy buses, and, they feel like that's what's responsible for the damage on the lot, or could further damage the lot. So they've asked us to vacate that area. They own a good portion of the Walmart area, and so we've been respectful to that, and so we started boarding out on the edge of Walmart, and then that ran into problems with, people bringing carts out and leaving carts out by the street. And so we've been working with Walmart to try to bring that in closer, and now we've added another stop in, closer to the entrance of the store, and they're actually relocating a car corral over there. So Walmart has been working very well with us in trying to get that done. And with regard to Central Mall, you know, we were in there, and the manager has been trying to work with us. It's been very good to work with us. It was a tenant there that kind of went and made a formal complaint to the owner, and that's where it, you know, spurred the need for us to vacate the Central Mall area. But as it is, the mall manager's working with us on the location of a bus stop shelter along Rogers Avenue. So I just want to kind of make sure that everybody understands, because I've seen some of the comments that they're directed towards the mall, they're directed towards Walmart, but it's not necessarily those entities that are in charge of that are doing that. It's more, it may be the tenants or someone close to the mayor, so, but we do try to work with everybody and, make things work, that's what we do. But just wanted to point that out as part of the, and how that ties to the shelters is we're constantly moving these shelters. That seems like a better way to soften the changes that we're having, is to have a shelter there.
Especially like the one on Zero that didn't move to a grassy area instead of a concrete area, it's making a giant difference.
Right.
And there was no, you know, you could have hid under the Walmart awnings
Right.
at the new stop like you could at the old one.
Exactly.
That's a big improvement, a lot of customers are gonna be happy about.
well, coming out of, solid waste and, Keep Portsmouth Beautiful, I think that, James will be trying to get someone who has used the cigarette dispensers that they want to put in the, shelters, to see if the new style of it would be less prone to, as you said, there were, people destroying them, people doing crazy stuff, you know. And, so they still wanna put those cigarette dispensers out to get those cigarette butts out off of our
Gotcha.
properties.
Yeah, Commissioner Austin came to me and said, hey, we need to put these, cigarette dispensers at all our shelters, and I'm like, oh, you know, we've got two of them, and they've been by far some of our biggest problems that we've had. And it's because, a lot of times the homeless will knock them over and try to get cigarettes out of them, and they've been torn up and beat up and you know, dumped over, to despite our, you know,
Mhm.
best efforts to try to
Mhm.
use that. as a
Someone needs to come up
menu.
with a tamper-proof variety, like the tamper-proof cans they're putting in downtown now were specially designed with that in mind. If there was like a little cigarette version that was somehow
Yeah, I
tamperless for
think,
the same reasons.
I think that was his thought, that these are not able, you couldn't do that with these,
Okay.
but I don't know, he's, you know, I mean, they got them on a grant, and, yeah, and so, using the grant, yeah, using the material, so I'm sure he's gonna contact somebody else with the more information and more before he contacts you
So
again.
maybe we can experiment with one and see how. it
Yeah.
goes.
Yeah, so,
And
is
we
it,
might try it
Are
in
they
some areas
cast
where there's less tamper
Are they
too,
cast
you know,
iron?
so.
That
so
makes a difference.
where, I mean, that's probably mostly a downtown problem, you know, we might pioneer some, like if we did one down there and then one in an area where it was high traffic but a different crowd.
well, the ones at Walmart or something.
Yeah,
like that
Walmart would probably
might
be
be a better,
a
safer
solid
place.
choice, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it could be something we can work through, you know,
Yeah.
just a little at a time.
Mm.
My point in that was that we just wanna be real careful,
Mhm.
because sometimes even the greatest intentions just don't turn out so well.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't want it to turn into a bigger problem.
No.
No, we don't wanna create more mess.
And we have only one person that, you know, monitors and does all, that, you know, takes out the trash and empties the trash on the bus stop, so we do have cans at.
And you have
the ones we have-
78,
yeah,
I mean, of those, yeah.
Not all those have trash receptacles, but,
But still.
and the
yeah.
ones that do, some work okay, a lot not so good, you know, and I won't get into the details of what not so good means,
Mhm.
but, it's very surprising. So,
Mhm.
you know, like I said, how many of these could be mistreated.
I had a rider request for a shelter on the Rogers side of the state building, like where, on the backside, on the Rogers side, like where Prohibition is, like on the parking garage side, like between the state building and the parking garage. So that's just one that we might keep on our radar for
Okay.
when we're adding more, that there's been a request.
David's taking note of that mentally, I can tell right now.
It's on the Rogers side
But the
of the
DHS,
state building, yeah, the DHS building, like,
it's gonna be,
And we work closely with, 646 downtown.
yeah.
It was them and Sarah Reesley that provided
Oh, and I'm sure they did a great job
Yeah,
planning
the
them. It's
program
just,
for the
you know,
audit,
if
so.
we're adding that this is one that, you know, we might think about, cause somebody
Sure.
has requested.
Sure, so, that's great. Awesome.
Item 5, Commissioner's Forum.
I don't have much today, graffiti on the shelters, I noticed a small graffiti on one of the shelters. Do we do anything about that, or do we just kinda let that be, or
Well, it's not our intent to leave it that way. Do you know which one it is?
the one in front of Walgreens
In
and
front of Walgreens?
on Rogers, that Rogers Greenwood Walgreens, that one right there has,
Okay.
it's small, it's not a big deal, and it's not anything obscene or anything, it's just a,
You know, we
ugly orange tag.
designed these shelters in such a way, and we did the,
It's
expanded
not real
metal.
tempting, yeah, it's
Yeah.
not real tempting to do, but this one they've managed to put a little spray paint on, I noticed, cause it was orange, it really stuck
Yeah.
out.
Well, I'll look at that.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, I love the design on the fact that it's got the expanded metal. because
Yeah, it's not real tempting to
I
graffiti.
see, you know, all across the country, they're
Mhm.
starting to, when we started doing that with the shelter manufacturer, we were the only agency doing that. Now they're starting to replicate that in other cities, because glass gets broken, you know, and
And
it
it's
becomes.
real easy to spray too.
It becomes
Tulsa's
an
looks
attraction,
terrible.
and then it gets scratched up,
Yeah.
and it becomes a graffiti magnet, and we, you know, these, that we've had pretty good luck with the exception of people kicking the panels out, so, you know, that.
Well,
So you
there's
have,
nothing you can do about that sort of wanton destruction.
but we'll take a look at that.
And we discussed a possible overhaul for the transit assistant ticket program, and have we made any further heard their thoughts on getting that underway, when we might consider that. Like, I know not during the holidays, because everybody's real busy, but the free tickets, the tickets that we give the organizations, we were talking last. Yes, we were talking about kind of maybe considering an overhaul of that system and to fit our bigger modern system.
So currently we have, about 30 organizations that are part of the program. We have a variety of different, ticket voucher amounts. And what we're currently doing is if they haven't, been active for 6 months, we take them off the list, leaving that as an opening for them to either come back and reapply or another agency to come in and possibly have an opportunity to apply for tickets. I'm not sure what you're meaning in the way of overhaul. I know we did have someone that asked for passes.
Yeah, we were talking about kind of considering some possible big changes and some clarifications to kind of set a more standard policy. I know we were kind of gonna have a discussion,
But
a big picture discussion on that.
I'm glad you brought that up because one of the things that we did
It's
is.
not, what we're doing is working fine for now, but we noticed that,
Well,
it may be time with our growth
yes.
to have.
Absolutely,
Stop
and I think
handling
one of
it.
the things that we put into our budget goals was to do a ridership study, for, the next year, for the future year. And as part of that, we'd like to take a look at our, fare structure too, and just take a look, there are all kinds of options. And as far as the, federal government goes, local fares are at the discretion of the local entity. So, you could either charge nothing, or you could charge, whatever you want. Now, there are some differences and requirements, so, for instance, your or your paratransit services, somebody that might be disabled, can't pay more than twice of what your base fare is. So, in other words, our base fare is $1.25, our demand response, or paratransit, while the fixed routes are in operation is $2.50. So it can't be any more than twice whatever it is, but obviously if you have it free
Right.
for,
Twice
fixed
as free
routes,
is free.
then, you couldn't do any more than free for paratransit. So it becomes sort of a regulatory, feature because, I know when we had our fares relatively low, what happened was we kind of had a little bit of an oversaturation of the paratransit demand response system and in utilization. And what happens there is if too many people become using that, then it cuts down on someone that has a disability's access to that service because others are using it because the price is so economical. So if we were to adjust fares or to do away with fares, whatever, we need to look at our policies real close on access of that type of service. So that's something to think about and to put into a study. Another thing to consider is the way our fares are, and Lori's gonna have to help me with this, but the way our fares are incorporated into our request for reimbursement from the Federal Transit Administration. Right now, we just reduce our expenses by the amount of fares. Is that correct, Lori?
That's correct.
And then what expenses are left over, we apply to the grant, and they will pay 50% of that, basically. And so, the local comes from the city, will be at the county sales tax portion, or donations or state funds that we might have, makes up the local portion of that. So options may exist if you were to do away with the fares, then, that actually would permit more expenses that you could apply to the grant that you could get 50% back on. So I mean, so there is some possible wiggle room there, but I think it's something that has to be a careful study,
Oh, for sure.
to make sure we're doing it right. And that may,
That, after that or in conjunction with that might be a good time to talk about the ticket system, not even consider talking about that until we've seen the options presented in that other.
well, I do think it's something we need to take a serious look at, and
We do.
I think next year's the time to look at that,
Okay.
closely. And I would like to, propose that we do a kind of a study session, so to speak, with the commission to, so we can just put some thoughts together on how that might work or would. We try to get some information from other agencies that might be doing something like that.
That's good.
We already know that, on free ride days, it becomes quite hectic. But then we also have concerns from passengers that have paid the full price of a monthly pass, and now others are getting free ride days. So in effect, it actually reduces the, value of, it. This is what we're hearing.
The pass is
It
already a
reduces-
bargain.
So then the integrity of the program becomes a question, so, we just have to make sure all the pieces fit together. But it does appear that there's a greater ridership, when we have these free ride days. And, something else I thought, maybe a way to kind of segue into that might be a free ride week, and see what that does. Does it level out, or is the ridership increase every day that week? Or, because we actually know that some passengers are literally waiting to do their services on the day that we have free ride day. And that does become quite tasky for the drivers, that now you have, because not only do we have passengers, an extra abundance of passengers, we also have increased wheelchairs, mobility devices, that come out on the same day, and that becomes very taxing on on the equipment, being able to have enough room for all the mobility devices. So, and again, is that because, we're doing these frequently and not enough, or is that, what is, so how would that impact things? So, again, that's something
For
that maybe takes
consideration.
close study.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't think that fares could have that in it.
Oh, it does.
But it does.
When you're on a budget, $1.25 each way, that's.
Right.
I wonder if putting 2 free ride days in a row would lessen the crush on that one day, or whether they just.
Or, yeah, it's hard to say, and like I said, that might, I think that's
Or
something
even
I'd like
something
to.
like a weekly, like a free Tuesday, or,
But we've had a lot of,
Mm.
a lot of questions that have come up, and I've been telling staff, let's wait, let's discuss that I'd rather do it all as one as than do
I
ad
like
hoc,
that. I like that.
little pieces. Let's try to do a greater package.
I like that. Big
Yeah.
Could we get, before we did that study session, could we have driver input on that?
Sure.
The
Sure.
frontline worker,
Oh, yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
Their view too.
If I
And
may,
another thing is, go
a
ahead.
little perspective on the fares, we average $150,000 in fares a year. So the impact to the local is 75,000, the impact to FTA is 75,000. So it's a small piece.
It's
for-
a drop in the bucket of our budget.
Well, it's
Exactly.
7% of our, that's the last time I calculated, that was several years ago, but it's roughly 7% of our revenue package, but, it's not a huge amount. But, like I said, it really helps with regulatory, because I can remember when we went from $1 to $1.25, it's like our demand response or paratransit issues were just almost resolved overnight. Our passengers that were disabled could suddenly get a vehicle that wasn't, absorbed by someone using it for.
And, that could possibly be offset with some different ideas too, like, more stringent system for who can use the demand response, or who gets priority demand response, you know, like, you know, pre-qualified type.
Right. And,
Where,
we do
but,
that.
you know, as it is now, pretty much, you know, they're gonna take your word for it, you know? You say you want it, you know, they're gonna punch you a time.
So we've done that, and we
Yeah.
currently do our ADA process by paper application. And you can go as extensive as bringing a physician in and having a full
Oh, and I
evaluation.
think that's overkill,
Yeah,
but you know, there could be a happy medium between you just don't feel like walking to a stop and that it is an actual challenge for you to walk to a stop.
But nothing regulates it more than money.
Right.
It's just
That's true, that.
what is,
Yeah.
you know.
No, nobody wants to pay $250, they don't have to.
So you know, it costs more money, but it actually opens up more service to, persons with disabilities, so anyways, that's just something.
Yeah,
we'll-
it's complex,
Yeah, yeah. So it's okay.
that's all I got.
I got a quick plug. So, 6 of us at UFIS have been working on a research grant with RDOT the whole year. We're starting to wrap up our, research and our reports. So the topics are determinants of bus cycling and walking and commuting, transportation consumer and expenditures for low-income families, health effects of cycling and walking activities, and development of rural, urban transit for non-emergency medical transportation needs. So if any of you are interested in reading about them, we would love your input.
Can you email that to us?
Sure.
Email.
She did to me, but I haven't had a chance.
We really, yours and Lori's the one.
I've started it, I started.
Oh, yay.
Yes.
Well, that's number 4, the non-emergency medical, the one that I shared.
Great
'Cause
work. We
the
really
others are all statistical and US Census data that they're analyzing, so 4 is more connected to transit here.
Great. We really appreciate what the university does, and we work well with them.
Item 6, citizens forum. Anyone today? March.
January through March, pulling it up. So do you guys wanna wait till March?
I think March sounds good, get us through the winter and into the spring.
Okay, so we've got the 6th, the 13th, the 20th, and the 27th. If everybody wants to stick with Wednesdays,
Yes.
okay?
I'm looking to see when the catfish conference is.
We don't wanna interrupt that news.
Did you say February?
March,
Oh,
March, yes.
We're good
I'm
then.
gonna look at my spring schedule real quick.
Oh, yeah, and I bet you have spring break and stuff in the middle we need to work around.
I'm here anyway. Let me see.
February 23rd and 24th. I'll be out there, just saying. Priorities,
The 20th is good for me, otherwise.
20th is for you,
That's spring break
Angie?
weekend.
Let me look real quick.
Okay,
That's spring break.
What my schedule is.
you're good on the 20th, Lori?
Oh, I'm fine, but
What about you, Greg?
spring break,
I'm not 100% sure, that's spring break week.
yeah.
Oh, is that
Maybe
spring break
earlier,
week?
yeah.
I may or may not, it depends on what my daughter
Challenge.
makes me do.
maybe the following week, or,
Don't base it on me though, you know, please don't let that stop.
Yeah, Wednesdays are fine. What day is that?
Still waiting. Joe, can you do the 27th?
I can do the 27th.
Okay, how about the 27th, so it's not spring break?
March 27th. And then,
Yes, and of course, show up for you guys.
yep.
For the, yes, a little early. 7, 12 o'clock noon. Wednesday.
that work for everything? Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your attendance. It'll be a while. Yeah.
Are we gonna sandwich and butcher block? You already wrapped up?
What's up? How are you?
I'm good, how are you doing? Good to see you.
Did I? I figured you got enough meeting yesterday.
You need something.